Hello everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 636. Actually, I thought this was quite a nice game. I was pretty proud of it in spite of, well, there were a few blunders and a somewhat disappointing finish. But yeah, a good game, I thought. Let's see, my opponent kicked off with e4. I played knight f6, going for the Alekhine's defense. He goes e5, I go knight d5. So all this is mainline. I sometimes play, I get d4. I guess where I diverge is on the next move. d4 is a normal move, d6. The idea with the Alekhine's defense is to just counterattack the center. And so that's this d6 move is starting that. And it also opens up a diagonal for the light squared bishop. So those are the ideas behind the d6 move. And then as white, I usually play with c4 right away and kick the knight, and the knight has to go over to b6. My opponent plays knight f3, which you see actually is the top choice. That's the modern defense, I think it's called. I go bishop g4, and then he takes. That's pretty rare. Normally they just play bishop e2, block the pin, and play continues from there. c4 is always an option to kick that knight around. But when he takes, this leads to position which I think is okay for black. Although, looking at it with the chess engine does not have a high opinion of Alekhine's defense here, so it gives white a pretty good advantage all the way through. And there doesn't seem to be a big difference between c takes and e takes. I mean, I kind of prefer c takes and keeping more pawns in the center, but it does slow down my development. If I were to follow the book move with e takes, then bishop e2 would be a logical follow-on, finally unpinning bishop e7. I still have kind of a cramped development here, but, there are open lines for both the bishops, and I guess I'm okay. So that would be a fine way to play as well. But I played with c takes, and the idea is to have an extra pawn in the center at the expense of having maybe a slightly weakened d pawn in some lines, and we're just out of the book here. He goes with c4 now, and I place my knight back to f6. I mean, from my point of view, it looks like the knight belongs over on this side of the board. Often the knight on b6 has to get rerouted and come back into the game via moves like this anyway. So why not go back directly to f6 given the chance? But actually, I looked at it with the chess engine. The chess engine wants to play over to b6 anyway. A bit of a mystery, once again. Can't say I understand that, but this is okay. It's nothing too horrible is happening. Let's see. So now he blocks the pin. Bishop e2. I go e6. Need to develop this bishop so I can castle. And that is, I guess, if we go back to that decision to take with the e pawn or the c pawn. If I had taken with the e pawn, then I wouldn't have had to waste a move moving the e pawn to develop the bishop. It would have already been out of the way. So I guess the way I played it is a little bit slower. Let's see, he played h3, kicking the bishop, and drop back. Plays bishop to h5. Let's see, he played queen a4 check here. This still keeps an advantage to white, but maybe it's not the most accurate move here. There's lots of good moves that white has, and there's no need for white to go into this kingside or queenside play. So, for example, just castling, developing the knight to c3, or playing bishop to e3 are all normal developing moves, and they're all probably better than this queen a4 check and b4 line that he plays. Knight bd7, I block the check, and b4. I guess b4 is where it really starts to go downhill. After queen a4 check, let's see, it still has an advantage to white, and after b4 check, it thinks the position is even a little better for black, but basically about even. So whatever opening advantage white had due to my choice of the Alekhine's defense, it's gone due to white's eccentric play. And once again, instead of b4, he could have castled or played knight c3 or bishop e3, all fine moves. So I just keep developing here. This, maybe these pawn moves may look ominous in some way, but what are they hitting? There's no targets over here on the queen side, so what do they accomplish? They do gain space, but white has also neglected development and left his king in the center. Let's see, white continues bishop b2, I castle, plays knight bd2, so he did finish his development except for his king. And I thought this was an interesting position. to try a pawn sack. And actually, looking at this later, e5 is one of the computer choices here. And well, the chess engine thinks it's not really a pawn sack because it's not safe for white to actually win a pawn here, as we saw in the game. So that's pretty interesting. But it's always an idea you should keep in mind. If you can sacrifice a pawn and open up lines, and particularly when your opponent's king is still in the center, if you can keep his king in the center, it's often worth a pawn. Okay, in this case, the pawn was poisoned. D takes e5, knight takes e5. This is still okay. But right here, the chess engine just wants to castle and leave the status quo. He continued taking, and let's see, I traded off the bishop first. The chess engine line here is actually to take with the pawn, which would give him a chance to play g4, kicking my bishop back. And then it's still too dangerous to take this pawn. So the chess engine just wants to leave this here and castle now that the bishop is no longer under attack. And so the material is even, but black's position is just better than white's. It's just the pieces are better coordinated, and it just makes more sense. Like white's scattered pawns just don't make a good impression at this point. Let's see. So that would have probably been best play for me to take immediately with. Let's cancel that. To take immediately with the pawn, but I threw in this bishop takes e2 check, thinking to pull his king out of the center. But he could just retreat his knight here at this point and play knight back to f3, and then I have to retreat my bishop. So, yeah, I may have to give up the bishop. I'm not sure if the bishop escapes so easily. Well, maybe bishop to d3 after he plays knight f3 to get away from the threats. And it should be an okay position. So where it goes downhill, let's see, he takes here. I take here, and it's this move here, bishop takes e5, is actually the losing move. He should actually lose from this point. He could still play rook h to d1. Let's see, I could go queen to c7, just defending my pawn now, and he could step back with his king, and it would be a playable position for white, although black is better. But when he played the move bishop takes e5, this is actually losing already. And I played this correctly. First, putting my rook on this file opposite his king. And I guess the problem is he has trouble unwinding here. There doesn't seem to be any way to avoid loss of material. I'm threatening immediately bishop to d3, winning that bishop. And so he tried knight f3, which is as good a try as any, defending the bishop. I went bishop d6. Yeah, bishop d6, not bishop d3. He brought his rook over to attack my bishop, and I went queen to c7 to unpin the bishop and threaten his bishop once again. And now he went rook d5. So rook d5 was a big blunder, and let's see. His best play here, let's give the best play for white, is to go ahead and give up the exchange here. Rook takes, queen takes, and then just unpin that bishop, and then now I can take here, he takes, I take, and as in the game, I just end up a piece up, and he has a pawn for the piece. So just winning by preponderance of material, but that would be best play. Let's see, when he played rook to d5, this actually opens him up for a tactic that I missed. So if you want to take a moment here and see if you could spot the tactic, this would have been a quick finish to the game. Okay, pause the video if you want some time to think about it. But the move I should have played here was queen takes. And just that's a check, and it hits the rook. And, well, we'll see a similar thing coming up later, but basically he's just giving up that rook, and I didn't take it. So kind of a shame. Anyway, I saw after rook d5 that I'm just winning a piece here, and I went ahead and took the piece. And so this is still winning. Let's see, he took with the rook. Cancel that. He took with the knight. I took with the rook. Just kept taking material off. He took, and I went queen e5 check, and he went king f1. And if we back up, this move was also a fork. This queen e5 check was hitting his king and the rook in the corner, which I didn't notice once again. He moved his king out of the way. So I gave the fork, he moved his king out of the way, and then I didn't take the rook, but I just played rook to d8, trying to bring my rook into the game, which would be good, except taking his rook would be even better. So having missed those two opportunities to win a rook, in addition to a piece, I'm in a situation where I'm a piece up for a pawn, still winning, but well, the game goes on. There's heavy material on the board, and there's takes a lot of maneuvering to convert this advantage. And I do okay for a while. It's he starts to. It was kind of annoying here. He was starting to win back some pawns, taking on a7. Right here, I could have improved. You know, what I was trying to do was I was trying to arrange my queen on this diagonal and my rook here to, you know, get some more threats against his king. And this would have been a good opportunity to do it. I could have played queen to c7 here, g3, and then brought the rook into d2. That would have been a good way to play. There's a couple of threats here. I'm hitting that pawn and I'm hitting that pawn. So it looks like, well, his queen's defending that pawn. Yeah, anyway, that would have been better than what I did. I played rook e8, and this is a long game, so I'm just going to go through this part here. I don't give away my advantage during this section, so we'll just step through it. We traded queens, and we go into this endgame with rook and knight versus rook, and he has a couple of pawns for the knight. He played a little badly over here. He pushed these pawns a bit recklessly, and I was able to win back the pawns. So now I am just rook and I'm just up a whole knight, and we continue this maneuvering. So I'm thinking this is an easy win, but actually it turned out to be somewhat tricky. And we get to this point. Oh yeah, I haven't, and I'm just maneuvering around with my king. I lined up my rook and my knight to attack his weak pawn, and everything is blockaded. So sometimes you can run your opponent out of moves, but he's got a rook, so the rook can always slide back and forth. It's hard to take away all the moves from that rook. Anyway, and I tried to bring my king into a good position, and then I couldn't see any way to make progress from here, and I kind of lost my patience and took over here. But after that, it's a draw. That's not a winning move. So I looked at this with a chess engine, and really, this is the kind of position where you just need to poke around and poke and prod and try and find a way to penetrate somehow. You have the extra material, so all the chances are on your side, but not easy to find a direct win. So let's give an example line here just to show the kind of things you can try. So king to c5, maybe going over here to harass his rook. Rook to e4. King down to c6. I'm opening up the 6th rank here so my rook can come out. Rook back to b4. Rook over to b5. Threatening to trade. It would be an easy win if I got the rooks off. So he keeps the rooks on. And now I can come in with a check, drive his king back a little bit. King to f2. Let's see. Rook over to h3, trying to win this pawn. And now actually I'm starting to make some progress. So catching his king out while it was on this square instead of on this square, so he couldn't come back to defend the pawns, is probably a key idea. So now he has to play some tricks to try and hold on to things. So he pushes his f pawn forward to defend the h pawn, but that actually loses a pawn, and he tries to activate his rook. Let's see, and I push on with f4 so I can try and grab the h pawn. Plays rook a7 to counterattack. Let's see, rook h2 check to drive the king to another square. I guess, I'm not quite sure what that does. Then taking the pawn, king to e4, rook to g4, king to e4, rook to g4, g6. Yeah, so it shows me mopping up all these pawns. Knight here check. King back to f3 and taking the pawn. So, if I could accomplish that much, I could probably figure out how to win from here. But, well, it took quite a bit of maneuvering, and I think I just ran out of patience here. And also, I misunderstood the situation. I thought I had I thought I was winning in this king and pawn endgame. But after rook takes, king takes, I go king d4, getting the opposition, and often you can use this opposition to approach and come in and win those pawns, but just doesn't work in this case. He drops back to f3, and coming down here will just lead to a repetition, so I have to come this way, and now he can grab the opposition in this direction, and I still can't really make progress. If I go sideways, then he blockades. So I tried pushing some pawns, but none of this works. So we'll just go through the rest of the game. We end up in a drawn king and pawn endgame here, which he played quite well. It's just hard to win with that rook pawn. I needed to get my king to this square while supporting the pawn, and just wasn't happening. So the game was a draw, somewhat disappointing finish, but an interesting game. Hope you guys like this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.